everybody. I am excited for today's presentation. Just a little kind of housekeeping first. Number one, I could probably spend a week easy on this topic without blinking an eye. So I have tried to consolidate as much information as possible to give you in an hour long today. So as Tara said, this is being recorded. You'll receive a copy of it. Also, you'll get a copy of the handouts. So feel free to take notes, but just know that you'll get what's being showed in front of you later on once the recording is wrapped up. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and get started today. As Tara said, yes, we do have a network of pharmacies around the country. So odds are you've got one of the Revelation Network pharmacies close by. If not, certainly we can mail and ship to you. So that's not a problem at all. So a little bit about what we do. I think that's always interesting to kind of start with that. Number one, our focus is compounding pharmacy. So it is the art of pharmacy. It's how pharmacy got started, the mixing of two or more ingredients to form a final product. With that being said, we do specialize in natural medicine, vitamins, minerals, herbals, homeopathics, natural skincare, beauty care products. So really very much kind of how your East meets West, what we can do to get you healthy and hopefully keep you healthy. We do offer personalized consultations. So that can be with pharmacists all the way to nutritional consultants. So help and guide you through. So with regards to women's health, that is so very imperative because things get tricky, as we'll go through today. So, having somebody, an advocate in your corner to help guide you, educate you. My philosophy, and I tell every patient in the consult, the first thing that comes out of my mouth is, you are the boss, you're in charge, it's your health. So what it is I see it as our really duty and pieces to help guide you, educate you, to make sure you have the options and the tools in your tool bag to really get your bar on quality of health as high as possible and keep it that way as long as possible. So I am trained in functional medicine, integrative approaches, and we will utilize different testing to look at things. The more data we can get, so looking at things differently, saliva, urine, hair, stool, neurotransmitters, micronutrients, as well as certainly regular blood labs. So we will try to get as much data as possible and coordinate that with your symptoms, your history, to really get a personalized game plan for you and what you want to accomplish with your health. So with that, anytime we're talking about compounding, it really is the triad. So it is the combination of your pharmacist, your practitioner, and you, the patient, working together as a key. So today, I am going to touch on compounded bioidentical hormones slightly. I am going to go through that, but today's focus is more on what we can do from the over-the-counter perspective. But again, we will touch on that. So when we are talking about compounded hormones, that is going to require a prescription. So us working with your practitioner, whether it's a MD, DO, NP, PA, et cetera, it doesn't matter on that piece. So whoever is on your side from that. So to start with some deep thoughts, and this is from New England Journal of Medicine, persons with lower health risks tend to live longer than those with higher health risks. And not only do persons with better health habits survive longer, but in such persons, disability is postponed and compressed into fewer years at the end of life. This may sound pretty simple, but really, this slide really shows it. And the reason why I show this slide in many of my presentations, but especially when we're talking about hormones, is you can see where that quality of life starts dropping off. Look at that. That's 35. We all kind of joke and kid, and we have the parties for our friends at 50, kind of over the hill and give Geritol and X-Lax and, walkers and stuff like that. But, it's really 35 where things start changing. So the sooner we catch something, the sooner we start working on it, the more likely it is that we're going to keep this bar elevated for as long as possible. So to kind of rephrase that, even if our endpoint's the same, even if no matter what we do, we die at the same age. I want personally, and I do this for my patients unless you tell me otherwise. I want that bar elevated. I want to go like a banshee and then just boom, one day drop dead and be gone. Now, ideally, we want to push this endpoint out, right? But at least we want to have optimal function as long as possible. So that's what I'm going to go over and try to help you with today. So some things kind of surrounding that changing, right? So as things start dropping off, we see increase in a variety of different disease states. So that's what we're going to touch on today and kind of give you some tools for your tool bag for what you can do to help with that. So one of which is bone health. And it's interesting, perimenopause is a time that the most rapid bone loss occurs. And you can monitor this by looking at a urine test, and this really kind of looks at bone resorption. So that's one thing to kind of give you a key into that. But really, and we've got whole separate webinars on this, which you can go and look at the archives. But really, I kind of have 5 pillars, if you will: weight-bearing exercise, hormonal balance, vitamin D, our calcium, magnesium, minerals. And also, the last thing on here that most people don't realize and don't look at is having an alkaline diet. And this can be monitored with your first morning urine. It's kind of like measuring the pH in the hot tub or your pool. You kind of dip the strip in the urine stream, and we want to keep that between 6.75 and 7.5. So we really kind of want that close to neutral / really tend to more alkaline. And then certainly if that is off, we can do some dietary changes to shift it to more alkaline versus acidic. Most people tend to be more acidic versus alkaline. Certainly having calcium on board, whether that's a food-based calcium citrate, all the way to microcrystalline hydroxyapatite. This is a form of calcium that's derived from bone meal. So if you have osteopenia or osteoporosis, this has clinically been proven to help with that bone density. So that's where I'm going to kind of gravitate to, especially if we have an issue. On the magnesium side, certainly my favorite is a magnesium glycinate. Best time for dosing, that's at bedtime. And I'll go anywhere from 100 milligrams up to 600 milligrams. And typically kind of around that 400 mark is where I gravitate to. Because that also is going to help with headaches and migraines. And also magnesium glycinate does a great job of helping with sleep. So anytime we can get a 2-for-1er, I go for it. 3/4 of U.S. teens and adults are deficient in vitamin D. Hence, that's why I put most everybody that walks through my doors on D3. So certainly not only bone density, but muscle, heart, circulation, immune support, overall health. And the data with COVID, folks, is pretty amazing. So maintaining that healthy level of vitamin D. So from a lab perspective, most labs have a normal, right? I have my air quotes up. Normal is between 30 and 100, but optimal, and that's why you are all here today. We want to talk about optimal health, right? Really is between 60 to 80 is where I want that level. So getting that up into that optimal place. So that not only with regards to COVID helps decrease the chance of contracting the virus, but also if you do contract it, then it decreases your severity of symptoms. Fish oils, omega-3 essential fatty acids. I put everybody that walks through my door on fish oils, good for everything head to toe. So certainly helping with cardiovascular health by lowering homocysteine and cholesterol, helping with blood pressure, circulation, lipoprotein levels, also protecting that with that LDL oxidative piece. So fish oils, lots of good things, also helping one side of the brain talking to the other. So this is where I come with really kind of my baseline. Baylor, I'm relatively healthy. What do I need to take to continue being healthy? So I like everybody to understand it's like building a house. We've got to at least start with this baseline. So our phytonutrient multi, which is a food-based multi with methylated Bs and very rich in antioxidants. Methylated Bs are going to support about 300 enzymatic pathways in the human body. Of course, fish oils, whether we do that with our soft gels or the liquid, and yes, the liquid is extremely clean tasting, doesn't have a nasty fishy aftertaste. Vitamin D3, my minimum is 5,000, but certainly I'll go higher if we have labs. CBD hits 220 systems of the human body, not just pathways, but systems. So I use that just for overall health and kind of a minimum of 15 milligrams on up a day. And then, of course, calcium, depending on your bone density and your age. So kind of a baseline, I'll use our USDA certified organic whole food calcium. But then certainly if we've got osteopenia or osteoporosis, I'll do one that has the microcrystalline hydroxyapatite. So I'll share a story with you here. Recently, last month, I broke my hand, and I went in yesterday for 4-week follow-up X-rays, and the tech comes back in, and I was expecting the absolute worst because you can't see, but it's swollen, and I can't straighten my hand out, and also can't fully bend it yet either. So working on that, but he comes in and after seeing the X-ray technician, and the X-ray technician, take my cast off, and she's looking at it. She goes, "Oh my goodness, did this just happen?" And right there, I'm thinking, "Oh Lord, this happened 4 weeks ago. Shoot, I'm going to end up having to have surgery on this darn thing." Took X-rays. Doc comes in and says, "Oh my gosh, Baylor, I don't know what you're doing, but I can barely see where the fracture was." What was I doing? You're probably asking. Well, I was taking our certified organic whole food calcium. I was taking our collagen peptides, right here with the funny background. It's hard to see. So I was adding that into my coffee every morning. I know you're probably thinking, yeah, Baylor, coffee is not the best thing. Mixed research on that, I know, but that's about one of the few vices I have. So you're not going to take away my cappuccino in the morning. And then our Boxley's organic CBD, I've been doing 100 milligrams of that a day. So for those who say, yeah, does this stuff really work? Yeah, right there, case in point. Absolutely. And he showed me on that. He's like, "Baylor, if I wouldn't have known where it was before, I would have had a hard time finding it." So yes, it does work when you take the right supplements at the right dose. Yes, we can see fantastic benefits. So lifestyle, of course. So back to menopause. Lifestyle, certainly this is going to affect our outcomes too, helping with body regulation of temperature, relaxation, physical activity, weight loss, smoking cessation. All of those different things can help reduce those vasomotor symptoms, so the hot flashes and night sweats, all that kind of stuff with menopause and perimenopausal. So yes, everything kind of does add up. So I know it is doing multiple things, but physical activity is also going to help you feel better, helping with energy, self-image, decreasing fatigue, helping with anxiety and depression. Side note, clinically as effective as Prozac for mild depression, not to pick on Prozac, but the data is there, right? We need to be active. We need to stay active, helping with relaxation, sleep, and dealing with and coping with stress. Sleep, disorders of circadian rhythm, really in sleep are associated with increased hunger, decreased glucose and lipid metabolism, broad changes in the hormonal signals involved in satiety. So yes, sleep does play a role in health. The amount of human sleep contributes to the maintenance of fat-free body mass at times of decreased energy intake. So ultimately where we're going at with that is weight, right? The more fat we carry, the faster we die. That's very black and white. And I know that may sound harsh, but that's the cold, hard truth. So this case really picture shows it. So body mass index, BMI. So as the body mass index increases, so as your fat rate increases, what happens, right? It's almost a linear line there with increases in hysterectomies. You look at it also, relationship of BMI and mortality. Now this one goes at a much steeper, right? So again, that's where I say the data exists. Carry more fat mass, the faster you're going to die. It's increasing the risk for excess mortality. So let's get the fat off. And that's also going to help with hormonal balance. So, starting with portion sizes, also fluid, definitely. We need water. We need the hydration. So basically take half your body weight in pounds. So if you're 150 pounds, then we're talking 75 ounces of water a day. Now that may go up or down depending on your kidney function, certainly, but also, here we're coming up on spring and summer. So, if it's outside, 90 degrees, 90% humidity, and you're out cutting the grass, well, then we may need to go higher than that on days like that, right? So absolutely essential. Mild dehydration, some of the signs, symptoms: dry mouth, sleepiness or tiredness, thirst, fewer tears, dry skin, headaches, constipation, dizziness, or lightheaded. Again, that fluid balance can make a big difference. Meal replacements. I use a lot of protein shakes, helping to kind of serve as a snack or breakfast or lunch to really kind of help balance that blood sugar, helping folks that aren't getting the right amount of proteins. So yes, I will gravitate towards those. A lot of different ones I use. Again, quality protein, the right amino acids, the right branch chain amino acids. Lifestyle changes, again, more fruits and veggies, decreasing the bad fats, increasing good fat, more fiber. We need at least, especially once you kind of hit that 40 mark, let's get up above 30 grams of fiber a day. Most of the patients I see aren't getting that. Trying to avoid the salt, the caffeine, the excessive alcohol, limiting the white flour and the sugar. Of course, I already mentioned the water. Exercise. We want to be moving, and this is kind of shifting. So, kind of once we get up older, we want to get really closer to that 300 minutes of cardio a week. So cardio, what do I mean by that? I want the heart rate elevated. Okay. I want you sweating. Bringing in some weight bearing exercise, that's going to help with the bones. Ladies, doing those Kegel exercises, and you can do those at stoplights, right? Again, for the multitaskers out there, get off your phone, do your Kegel exercises at the stoplight. And of course, daily stretching. Relaxing, breathing deep, do something relaxing 20 minutes a day. And I know some of this sounds simple, but it's adding up. A lot of these little teeny simple things, all of a sudden, now we've got something that's really going to make that difference. And as I alluded to earlier, sleep, 8 hours of straight sleep. And I'll see a lot of folks, well, they're going to bed at 11 and waking up at 7 and thinking to themselves, hey, I'm getting 8 hours. But then you dive into it. Well, it's taking me 30 minutes, 60 minutes to wake up. Oh yeah, then I'm waking up 2 or 3 times to go to the bathroom, and then it's taking me 30 minutes to fall back. Yeah, Baylor, you're right. My mind is kind of racing, right? So then when you look at it, they're never really hitting delta wave sleep, and they're not getting anywhere close to 8 hours of straight sleep. That's imperative for adrenal function, which the adrenals are processing and handling that fight flight. That's going to have negative feedback loops to the sex hormone. So again, you'll hear me say it over and over: balance, balance, balance. Hormones. So deep thought, right? So the fact is that the loss of hormones in both men and women is part of that process by which nature leads us to old age and death, right? So again, going back to that thing, as the hormones drop off, that's affecting quality of life. That's affecting long-term disease. The simple fact is one can't have a satisfactory life if one doesn't have satisfactory hormones. So let's talk about hormones just a little bit. 3 main estrogens: estrone, estradiol, estriol. Typically, you're running at a 10%, 10%, 80% estriol ratio. Progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, pregnenolone, and androstenedione. Those are the main sex hormones, most of which that we're working with patients. A majority are those. We use some pregnenolone, and we'll certainly talk about that at times, pull that in. But this is mainly with what we're working with. Certainly, DHEA, pregnenolone are available over the counter, as are some progesterone creams. Again, typically, I'm not going to use DHEA over the counter unless I have a lab. I like looking at the data. Why try to fill the gas tank up if the gas tank's already filled up? Doesn't make sense, right? Figure out what's going on and where we are with metabolism. So let's talk about the functions of estrogens. They are hormones. They really are chemicals that act as messengers in the body. They play a vital role in reproductive health, bone health. Estrogen slows bone loss, helps against that resorption, helps prevent hardening of the arteries, protects from colon cancer, helps with Alzheimer's and dementia. It helps sexual interest and health, and also aiding in the formation of the neurotransmitters in the brain. Oops, sorry. Metabolic rate, our insulin sensitivity, certainly thermodynamics, right? So helping with that body temperature, which is why we see so much with vasomotor symptoms of increase in hot flashes. Muscle damage, maintaining muscle health, sleep, cataracts, elasticity, right? Why do women get more fine lines and wrinkles as you get older? Decreased in estrogen equals decrease in collagen, right? So estrogen affects that collagen formation. So the elasticity, the plumpness, the fullness, that's going to help pull in water. It's going to help with hydration. So again, going back to hydrating, right? Dilating small arteries, helping with blood flow, inhibits platelet stickiness, decreases LDL and prevents its oxidation, helps with fine motor skills, and certainly production of nerve growth factor. So this is a whole lot more, folks, than just thinking about hot flashes and night sweats, right? So symptoms kind of turning that around. Certainly the hot flashes, night sweats, vaginal dryness, dry skin, hair, nails, everything drying up like the Sahara, painful intercourse, decreased orgasm, urinary leakage, UTIs, focus, concentration, right? So progesterone balances the estrogen. It's almost kind of like a yin and yang to a certain extent. Certainly progesterone helps with GABA formation. So we're going to see helping with sleep. So typically I'm going to dose progesterone at bedtime. Now, maybe 1 out of 500 patients, I'll see where progesterone winds them up. In that case, then certainly I'll flip it and use it in the morning. Certainly, again, calming effect because of the GABA, helping with blood pressure, helps the body get rid of fats, lowering cholesterol, helps with hair, fluid balance, metabolic rate. It's a natural diuretic, natural antidepressant, natural anti-inflammatory. So again, progesterone's doing a whole lot in the system. Helps with osteoblast formation, so helping with formation of that new bone, helping with thyroid balance, libido, oxygenation, helps with TH1, TH2 balance, neuroprotective, as well as helping to protect the breast. It's balancing that estrogen. So symptoms, kind of rephrasing just what I went over a little bit so it hits a little bit more pointed for you. Anxiety, irritability, depression. So progesterone, think it's the happy hormone, right? Helps with bloating, breast tenderness, headaches, sleep issues, trouble losing weight, irregularity. So what we'll see with really decreased progesterone and or estrogen dominance, we'll see a lot of infertility, endometriosis, and fibroids. Testosterone. So you can see this certainly has darker shaded pink, and then the pink gets lighter, right? So what are you seeing? You're seeing that testosterone decreasing while we're aging. You may be thinking, well, Baylor, isn't that just a male hormone? Well, guess what, ladies? You and I have the same hormones. It's just, Lord knows, hopefully my testosterone level is higher than yours. Likewise, I hope your estrogen levels are higher than mine. With that being said, I'll see at least a patient a week that my estrogen level is actually higher than hers. Now, you can tell my voice is deep. I am a male. I have 6 kids. Yes, 1 wife. And so why is that? Well, that's because we're dealing with some folks that have some pitifully low estrogen levels. Not that mine's high. No, mine's in the normal range for a male my age. Okay, so it again goes back to hormonal balance. So what does testosterone do? A lot of times we'll think of muscle, right? We'll think of Hans and Franz, and we'll think of libido, but it also helps with a whole lot of other issues, right? So balancing sense of well-being, energy, muscle tone. So for women, it's more tone and strength. It's not building these massive muscles. If you see somebody like that in the gym, trust me, they're doing something funky. That is not normal for males, okay? Even their jacking rates up way too high. Increases basal metabolic rate, lean muscle mass, decrease in abdominal fat, helps also with bones, lowering cholesterol and LDL, helping to lower diastolic blood pressure, and helps against insulin resistance. Sexual dysfunction, we'll see lack of interest in sex coming up to about a third, unable to achieve orgasm. About a quarter of the patients we see, painful intercourse, that runs anywhere from 8 to 20%. And then just sex not being pleasurable, again, about a quarter of the patients we'll see. So some things that we can do for that, certainly libido support is a formulation. It does contain tribulus, and it helps with endogenous testosterone production and upregulation of growth hormone. Another thing, so if we're having more of an orgasm sensation issue, we've got a Bliss Intimate oil that has some CBD and some other things to help kind of with that sensation piece. It does very well as well. Certainly, we do have some compounded options that we kind of refer to as quote unquote kind of our scream creams, if you will. So hey, you know, it's not just about the Viagra for the guys, ladies. So we can actually incorporate some of those ingredients into a topical cream for you as well. Now, those do, again, require a prescription, but again, we can reach out and work with your practitioner with that. So the libido support formulation, as I alluded to, does have tribulus. It also has some ashwagandha, some cowhide seed extract, non-GMO, gluten-free, vegetarian. We're again very specific with our manufacturers with how and what things are made. Typically 60 tablets in a bottle, 1 to 2 twice a day. Generally with women, I'll start with 1 twice a day. With guys, typically I'll go heavier at 2 twice a day. So why such a difference? You may be thinking there, well, Baylor, wow, you've gone over such a difference, but you know, hormones have gotten such a bad rap. Well, you know, typically most of the data is linking back to synthetic hormones. So this is equivalent, which is a synthetic hormone, ethinyl estradiol. So it does kind of come down more to using those bioidentical hormones and at the right ratios, right? Makes a big difference with long-term as well as symptom control. Again, progesterone, you'd see synthetic progesterone has similar core structure, but you've got these groups added on, and that makes a big difference with how that molecule hits and functions at the receptor level. Okay, they work very differently, both certainly protecting the endometrium, but natural progesterone is going to spill fluid. Synthetic is going to hold on to fluids. Natural progesterone help protect the breast. Synthetic is going to increase the risk for breast cancer. Again, I can go on and on and on. Big stark difference between synthetic and bioidentical for that piece. So certainly benefits of bioidentical hormones. And yes, I do practice what I preach. Got to rehydrate, helping with body's balance, right? Reducing the symptoms, helping with the muscles, cholesterol, heart, bone, mood, concentration, libido, brain function, decreasing those side effects. Getting back to a lot of patients, I'll see, you know, Baylor, I can't just put my finger on it, but I just don't feel right. Let's get you back to that state of normalcy. Right. So the key is too, not only do we kind of go by history, family history, personal history, diet, lifestyle, symptoms, but also I want to see labs. Now, I know this is focused on women, but you know, a lot of women will have significant other males around. So I did include what I like to see for the guys. So you can share that with them. But back to the female. So I want to see the testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, sex hormone binding globulin, DHEA, vitamin D, and certainly cholesterol. If you haven't had that recent, let's check in on that. Treatment options from a compounded perspective. Certainly we do capsules, transdermals, an awful lot of transdermals, sublingual troches, nasal sprays, rapid dissolve tablets. We can do some injectables. So really, again, fine-tuning that depending on what your specific situation is. So let's get back to kind of what we can do nutritionally. What can we do over the counter for a variety of things? So Vitex, chase tree berry extract, certainly that's been approved by the German Commission E, monograph for PMS and nostalgia. Dopaminergic, inhibits prolactin secretion, reduces depressive symptoms of PMDD, lengthens the short luteal phases and supports luteal phase progesterone synthesis. So what we'll see is a decrease in breast tenderness, headaches, constipation, edema, tension, etc. So typically we're going to use a standardized extract, about 200, 250 milligrams twice a day. You know, you got to give it time, ladies. This isn't going to work overnight. So 2 cycles, at least really 3, 4 to kind of balance out. So again, this is kind of more, I'll use more in the 20, 30-year-olds, early 40s. Okay, so this is kind of the earlier phases to balance. So if you're having irregular cycles, things are goofy, I'll use Vitex to kind of balance things out. Dong Quai helps with PMS symptoms, heavy bleeding, Really kind of a tonic, helps with circulation and that pelvic congestion. Also good for scanter as well as darker old blood. So that's an agent we'll use. DIM, diindolylmethane, is what that stands for. Another kind of analog to that is indole 3-carbinol, I3C for short. Helps with the metabolism of the estrogen. So when we're looking at that, estradiol has a very quick back and forth reaction to estrone. Estrone goes down into 16-alpha hydroxyestrone, 2-hydroxyestrone, or 4 hydroxyestrone. So what it really does is helps kind of off that beta glucuronidation metabolism pathway off the estradiol, but also helps to shunt and clean up that 4-hydroxyestrone pathway. That's where the carcinogenic pathway lies for the breast tissue. Okay, same is true for the prostate for guys. So I use an awful lot of diindolylmethane. Also SGS is kind of an even more kind of potent form of that, if you will, sulfonylurea glucosinolates. It's a broccoli sprout extract. So our hormone detox contains a combination of SGS and DIM. Works very well, generally 1 to 2 capsules a day with food, helping with that metabolism of the estrogen. So if you're seeing a lot of breast tenderness, trouble losing weight, bloating, kind of that mid-game through here, or, if we've got labs and you've got an elevated sex hormone binding globulin. So if that SHBG is up, then certainly using that hormone detox to help with that piece does a nice job. Milk thistle, solmarin, like alpha lipoic acid, it helps to increase cellular glutathione, helps support liver function in essence, right? A lot of times we'll combine that with NAC. Very useful, especially if you are on synthetic hormone or been on it. Now, synthetics, I'm also going to include birth control pills, right? If you're on synthetics and we need to kind of help with detoxification, then I'll use milk thistle formulation. And one that has the NAC built into it is our liver support formula. And I'll do 1 capsule 2 times a day. Alpha lipoic acid, sometimes you can refer to it and see it as lactic acid. Water, as well as fat soluble, helps with utilization of things. It regenerates that antioxidant potential, right? Also, side note, great for nerve endings. It helps with regeneration of nerve endings. So if you have any burning, tingling, numbness, if you have any neuropathy, does a very nice job. I'll see a lot of women, especially women that have been on synthetic hormones, with something called burning mouth syndrome. So we'll actually work with their doctor. We'll compound estriol troches, and in combination with that, I'll use alpha lipoic acid 300 milligrams. BID stands for twice a day. I'm sorry, I had my pharmacy hat on for a second when doing that. So twice a day on that. Okay. Sal palmetto. Now you may think, oh my goodness, Baylor, my husband's on sal palmetto for his prostate. Absolutely, it helps with that. But also what it can do is help with that when you think about testosterone. Testosterone gets metabolized either into estradiol, ladies, or it can go into DHT, dihydrotestosterone. So sal palmetto helps with shunting that DHT. DHT being elevated affects a lot of women with hair loss if it's hormonally induced. Okay, so there's a tool for your tool bag. DHEA, there again, I don't like using DHEA unless we have a lab. In short, if I were to give one word to it, vitality. Okay, one of the hormones secreted by the adrenal glands, the other one is cortisol. I'm going to touch on adrenals in just a little bit. Typically for my females, 5 milligram capsules, and we also have a 5 milligram liposomal sublingual spray that's over the counter. That's the one I gravitate to, does great absorption. We do have 25 and 50 milligram available. Now, I've got a note on here. Generally, I'm not using those for females. 25, 50 milligrams is generally going to be too strong for a female. We want to use lower dosing. So those I'll generally use for our male patients. Progesterone. So we do have over-the-counter progesterone cream. So it generally provides about 20 milligrams of progesterone per pump. So how I dose that really depending on where you are in your stage of life, right? So, we've got that piece where estrogen kind of does that during the month. Progesterone goes up and does that. So depending where you are, so typically we're going to have lower progesterone first half of the month, much higher progesterone second half of the month. So if you are still cycling, generally, a lot of times I won't use any progesterone days 1 through 5, and then use like a quarter to a half a pump, days 6 through 14, and then anywhere from 1+ pumps, go up to 3-4 pumps, days 15 through into the cycle. So really kind of that 28 to 30 days, depending where you are on that. So also depending on labs, depending on symptoms, right? And then of course we can always do compounded progesterone too, in creams, capsules, troches, whatever. There again, as I said, I start with, you're the boss, you're in charge. So what can we do to educate you, guide you, get you to where you need to be? Work together as a team. Estrovera, that is a natural, it's a plant-derived extract. Lots and lots of data on this. So this is going to be more hot flashes, night sweats, sleep, mood, irritability, really the symptoms of menopause. 1 tablet a day is typically what we'll do with that. And a lot of times I'll combine that. Absolutely. You may be thinking, well, what about combining that with progesterone? Absolutely. Right. So generally I'll start with, for kind of that perimenopause, kind of the Vitex, or transition to the progesterone. And then as the hot flashes and that sort of thing start ramping up, then we'll bring in the Estrovera, or we'll use things like black cohosh, donquai, red clover, etc. Estrovera, though, is one of my favorites. I think it's one of the most successful of decreasing symptoms. PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. Vitex is going to help with that ovulation, and Gymnema is an herb that is going to help with that insulin resistance piece. Again, I also want to look at progesterone. I want to look at the hormones to see where you are. Restless leg syndrome. So 30% of women with this will have low iron. So now your iron, normal iron may be okay, but check the ferritin. Ferritin are stores of iron. Normal labs on this run 150 down to 15. So that's a large range. So a lot of people will come back as normal. However, optimal is around 90. So if that is low, generally what we'll use, it's very stubborn, takes a long time to get ferritin elevated. I'll use a form of iron called iron glycinate. It's much more efficient at increasing the ferritin. It's also easier on the gut, less constipating. So I'll go 15+ milligrams of that a day, again, depending where your number is. Also, side note on ferritin. Ferritin can also affect how the T3, which is the active thyroid hormone, binds at the receptor level. So I'll see this in more menopausal patients versus perimenopause. If they're having hair loss for unknown reason, seeing dermatologists, et cetera, what in the world's going on? Check the ferritin, because I'll see low ferritin also being associated with hair loss for menopausal issues. Sex hormone binding globulin. If it's too low, generally we can use flax or lignans, can help increase it. Likewise, if it's too high, in most of the patients I see we're dealing with, it's too high. Testosterone and DHEA can help to free that up. So it can help to decrease SHBG. Also, our probiotic spectrum. It's the only probiotic that's been clinically proven to help lower sex hormone binding globulin. Best time to dose it's at bedtime. Also, again, our hormone detox, which is the SGS and DEM combination, 1 to 2 a day, best absorbed with some food. Fibroids. So if you have fibroids, think DEM again. Let's go back to helping with metabolism of the estrogen. Also increasing the fiber. Fiber is going to help to bind with the estrogen to get rid of it. B complex, zinc, magnesium, iodine. All of those are going to help with fibroids. Fibrocystic breast disease, let's think evening primrose oil, iodine, vitamin E, probiotic spectrum, again, to help with the absorption and transport of the estrogen. Decreasing caffeine intake, also helping to improve liver function. So again, going back to that liver support, that's also going to have the NAC built into it. PMSA. A standing for anxiety, nervousness, irritability, tension, mood swings, anxiety. One area of focus we need to think about certainly is the adrenals. So if you haven't had a adrenal panel done, the best way to look at adrenals is with saliva. So it's a kit we can get to you. You spit in tubes, and you do that 4 times a day, because I want to be able to graph the cortisol. I want to look at it before breakfast, before lunch, before dinner, before bedtime. So there's this diurnal pattern with cortisol. So the only way to really get that is spitting in some tubes. So looking at that cortisol level, and then also, again, DHEA, as those are the 2 primary hormones secreted by the adrenals. Ashwagandha, also think CBD, kava or L-theanine, also helping to balance that piece. PMSC for cravings. So with that, we see increased appetite, headaches, fatigue, dizziness, heart pounding. Think we need to support the pancreas. We need to help with the blood sugar. So we add in an herb called Gymnema, evening primrose, our EPA DHA. So that's our fish oils, right? And also a lot of times we'll see decrease in protein intake. So by increasing that protein, that can help. PMSD, so for depression, right? The depression, the forgetfulness, crime, confusion, insomnia. Again, also thinking adrenals, think wild yam extract. A lot of times once I have that adrenal piece and we can chart it, if that's down here, what I'll do is I'll use a licorice extract. It's called cortisol synergy to help pull that cortisol level up. Okay. So generally I'm not using the cortisol synergy unless I have that cortisol test to see where you are with the cortisol. St. John's wort, great herb, been around a long time for helping with mood, depression. PMSH for hydration. So symptoms there, we'll see fluid retention, weight gain, swelling of the extremities, breast tenderness, abdominal bloating. Again, think low progesterone. So whether we increase that with over-the-counter progesterone or compounded progesterone, another thing, of course, is using that Vitex to help with the endogenous progesterone reduction. PMS pain, so the aches, the pains, the cramping. Ginger, so our ultimate ginger complex, or we've got a ginger rescue that is a liquid tincture. Ginger works fantastic. We'd also think about boswellia, curcumin, CBD, lobelia, which is an herbal extract. Now, the taste on this is awful, but it does work very well. It is an herbal tincture. And for the curcumin, we've got one that's CR. It's a controlled release curcumin, so it's going to give you about 3 times the absorption of normal turmeric. Okay, so I kind of call this my ADD slide, right? I know this is kind of, oof, oh my goodness, what is this? So this is looking at the endocrine system. So the hypothalamus regulates pituitary regulates the sex hormones, the thyroid, the adrenals. So ultimately, each of these feedback and affect each other, both in a positive viewpoint and negative at times. The biggest negative one, honestly, is with the adrenals pushing negatively on the thyroid, and the adrenals can also have a huge negative impact on the sex hormones. So ultimately, what we want to achieve is balance through here. Okay. So let's go over quickly, and we do have separate webinars on this. So if again, I'm hitting the adrenals and thyroid very quickly, because I do feel it is such an important piece of perimenopause, menopause, and really hormonal balance in general, which is why I feel like I needed to include a little bit in here. But if as I'm going through this, it's okay, ding dong, I want to dive into this a little bit deeper. We do have recorded webinars on both of these, as well as our schedule going forward. We'll circle back and hit these again in the future. So adrenal symptoms: crash in the mid-afternoon, decreased energy, fatigue, craving salty, craving sugar, carbs, decreased libido, focus, concentration issues, wounds healing slowly, sleep disturbances, circles under eyes, immune issues, or mind racing at bedtime. So if you're going check, 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 we need to look at adrenals, guys. rather, ladies, and also severity, right? Generally in the forms that we have you fill out, we'll have a column saying absent, mild, moderate, all the way to severe. So also kind of depending where you're checking these off, if you're slammed out here in the moderate, then absolutely we need to look at salivary cortisol levels and DHEA. Lots of different tools in our tool bag here. One of my favorites is our cortisol support. It's an herbal adaptogenic formulation to helping to balance the adrenal functions. Also, again, CBD, bringing in CBD. I use an awful lot of L-theanine. L-theanine does a great job of balancing two main neurotransmitters, epinephrine and norepi, but it also helps with balancing serotonin, dopamine, GABA, PEA, histamine, glutamate, as well as phenylethylamine. And of course, if DHEA is low, if we know it's low by labs, then of course, then we're going to add some DHEA on board. Thyroid. So thyroid symptoms: decreased energy, chillier than others, wearing socks to bed, anxieties leading to panic, aches and pains unrelated to exercise, depression, libido issues, hair dry, falling out, brittle nails, decreased focus, concentration, exhausted, yet trouble sleeping. So again, if you're going check, 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 then we need to think and look at the thyroid. Now, let me flip to labs, and then I'm going to go back. So labs, ultimately, I want to see more than just TSH. TSH is that feedback loop between the pituitary hypothalamus and the thyroid gland. I want to know where the rubber meets the road. So looking at free T3, free T4, reverse T3, certainly the feedback loop, of course. If you haven't had it done, then looking at TPO and thyroid antibodies. So do we have an autoimmune inflammatory issue going on with the thyroid? And as I noted earlier, ferritin can affect how the T3 binds at the receptor level. And also, ladies, vitamin D can affect that too, right? Also pulling in, how's your temperature? How are your symptoms? So labs certainly can detect disease, but not optimal function. So I want to see what those numbers are. And once those come back, just don't accept if you get the little postcard saying WNL, which means within normal limits, as, hey, I'm okay. These all have pretty big ranges. Okay. I want to see where we are, and let's optimize that. Okay. So there are different things that we can do to support thyroid function. And yes, I did duplicate, right? Again, it's baseline. We need the phytonutrient multi, we need the fish oils, we need the vitamin D on board. So if you're doing all of that, then certainly the next step is adding thyroid support complex that helps both hypo as well as hyperthyroid. It helps normalize. It's an adaptogenic formula. It's going to help with that T4 to free T3 conversion, because far too many times people are taking that T4 down into reverse T3, which sits in the receptor, and it displaces the free T3 from doing what it needs to do. So a lot of times I'll see patients over and over that, Baylor, I've had my thyroid tested and it's normal, right? And all the practitioner did was maybe a TSH with what's called a reflex T4, and those were within normal, but certainly not optimal. You've still got a ton of symptoms. So let's look deeper and let's support those pathways. Okay. Now, ultimately, I want to go back because I kind of call it endocrine ADD. I can't tell you how many menopausal women or even perimenopausal women I'll see that say, Baylor, it's like a disconnect. I feel like I woke up one day and I've got ADD. You don't wake up one day and you have ADD. You don't wake up one day and you've got Alzheimer's. It's a path, right? It leads, things go down the road. So if this is off, right, and you're probably thinking, well, under your sex hormone piece, there were symptoms that overlapped with the thyroid and also overlapped with the adrenals. Absolutely. A lot of the symptoms do overlap. And that's why it's good we can't just be focused over here, but we need to look at the whole system, right? We need to keep balanced. So many people are just so stressed out these days. And again, with that negative feedback loop to the thyroid, I just see the whole system just kind of out of balance. So likewise, you're feeling out of balance, right? You're feeling not optimal at all. Okay, let's touch briefly on neurotransmitters, because especially during this Baylor, I've got, just a lot of PMS type stuff, whether it's in the 20s or leading into the 30s, or fertility issues. And then, then the 40s hit and we start having the perimenopausal stuff. And then all of a sudden, boom, late 40s, early 50s, full blown menopause. Well, the sex hormones affect neurochemistry too. So it's sometimes if we look down the other path and okay, things are balanced there, but yet we're still not right, then another area that we can certainly look at are looking at the neurotransmitters that help balance the mood and the emotions and cravings, etc. So symptom wise, certainly a lot of symptoms you'll see overlap of what we've already discussed with regard to the endocrine piece, right? So it's what are the neurotransmitters? That's serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, epinephrine, GABA, glutamate, also PEA. We can kind of keep going there, but those are the main ones we work with. And as you see here, this is kind of those neurotransmitter pathways. A lot of these things in kind of orangey red are methylation. I mentioned methylated B vitamins. So that's one reason why we have methylated Bs in our phytonutrient multi, because half the population has what's called an MTHFR deficiency, which is a genetic SNP, to where you're not able to metabolize that B12 and folic acid properly. So in that subset of patients, and we need to use methylated Bs. Well, guess what? Methylation affects most all of neurochemistry, right? So it's so very important. It's, again, building blocks. And it is balance, right? Oh, well, let me go back to this. And so we can check neurochemistry with a urine test is how we do that. So it's a kit that we can get you. You take home, you pee in a cup in the comfort of your own home, and then it's got FedEx and everything. You send it off. We get the results back in about 2 to 3 weeks. So that's how we can monitor and really look at your neurochemistry. So balance. I know I've gone over a lot in a relatively very short time today, but it is balance in general. Are we getting the rest? Are we getting the sleep we need? Are we getting the exercise? Certainly factoring our genetics, our relationships. Do we have supportive relationships, or do we have people that are, oh my goodness, every time you look on caller ID, you go, oh, shoot, not them again. Well, let's cut them out, right? Try to mitigate that exposure if you can. Healthy diet, hormonal balance, certainly clean environment. So really it is not just balancing the hormones, but it is kind of keeping all of this piece in balance as well. Certainly you've heard me touch on quality. We deal with companies that are GMP certified, registered with the FDA, following dissolution, disintegration, mass spectroscopy, liquid chromatography. So every batch is tested. Also looking at the certificate of analysis, especially when dealing with CBD. Has it been done by an ISO certified third party? Does it include, when we're talking about CBD, cannabinoid content as well as THC content, pesticides, herbicides, microbes, heavy metals, solvents, etc. And those things should be lot specific, not just, hey, we, having a company that, hey, we did it once when we started, but we haven't repeated. Every single batch and lot needs to be retested. So this is an example of generally what I'll kind of type up for our patients when we go through and do a consult. So I wanted this on here so you had kind of an overview, and I kind of consolidated onto kind of one slide, right? So that Mediterranean style diet globally, that is the healthiest diet. Lots of water, pulling in the exercise, 8 hours of straight sleep, doing something relaxing. Labs, if you haven't had them done, certainly if we've got adrenal symptoms going on, looking at the cortisol, neurotransmitters, if there's a lot of depression, anxiety, and sleeplessness, and we may start with the sex hormones and the adrenals, and then if that doesn't quite get us there, then pull in the neurotransmitter piece. Certainly looking at the sex hormones, and we can do this with either blood or saliva. If you want to have blood done and your doctor won't order what we need to, or look at full thyroid, then you can go to our website and click on Ulta Lab, and we do have a conduit to be able to get you scheduled those labs, and it's about 83% off of typical retail. Reaching out, getting in touch with our patient care coordinator, Allison. She's at patientcare@revcustomrx.com. She can get you scheduled for a consultation so we can work with you and be that partner to getting you to where you want to be. Again, I kind of have this subdivided under general, right? So this is the baseline, the multi, the fish oil, the vitamin D, the calcium. And then if we've got adrenal symptoms, pulling in the cortisol support. If we've got thyroid symptoms, pulling in that thyroid support complex. And I will use those too without labs. So if we're kind of check, I've got a lot of symptoms, I'll pull those in. But certainly as the symptoms get more severe, that's where, let's look at the lab so we can see if we need to be more aggressive. CBD, since it hits so many different aspects and helps decrease inflammation, and ultimately inflammation is what leads us to old age and death by many aspects as well. It accelerates that piece. CBD does a great job of decreasing inflammation. Certainly stress and anxiety, adding certainly L-theanine on board if we need to. And then of course, we've got a lot of different sleep options we can use to kind of pull in depending on what's off and where the sleep cycle is off. So hopefully this kind of helps give you an idea of where our brains are and where we kind of look. So again, it is kind of pulling that whole piece in. And again, got that for you, but I just went over that again here with on kind of the handout. So other supplements, I'm not going to go into great depth with this. I just certainly as we age, more things kind of come into the realm, right? Brain health. There's different things we can do to support that. So as you're aging and we start seeing changes, and or certainly depending on family history, and then looking at the stress piece, sleep, gut, joints, inflammation. So, as we have more injuries as time goes on, then that's only going to increase the potential for arthritis and needing to help with that cartilage. So our joint complex is a type 2 collagen protein that's also combined with a hops extract. So it's a 2-for-1, it hits not only inflammation, but it also helps, is one of the best things helping with that cartilage. So really kind of that bone on bone. Webinar specials. We did put together a couple of bundles for today. So, if you're shopping online, you can go to the online store and then type in just bundle under the search thing, and you'll see these two kind of pop up. So really we wanted to have a multi in there, fish oil, the vitamin D with some progesterone cream. And then for the menopause bundle, the multi fish oil, the Estrovera, as well as the vitamin D. And typically that's going to save you about 10% on that piece. So that's one way that you can kind of get it kind of all in one if you want. So how do I get started? Certainly starting on the baseline supplements, having some labs done. Again, we can facilitate that if needed. Scheduling another consult, sending Allison an email. She can get a patient history form. Our patient forms are about 6 pages long. We want the data, we want the information, we want to blend that with the labs to really kind of get you to where you need to be. Again, if you've got a lot of history of stress, so for some people, some of that stress goes back 20 years. For some people, it's, well, gee, I retired 2 years ago, but I'm still tired. I'm still worn out. Well, you burnt yourself out for 25 years. You might have retired for the last 2 years, but you never did anything to rebuild. So we still need to look at the adrenals and see what we need to do there. So certainly contact information, you can reach out to us. Again, if you're here local in the Virginia area, South River, again, depending where you are across the country, one of our sister pharmacies can certainly help you. In the bottom of the area, it could be at the bottom of your screen or the top of your screen, you should have, and sometimes you may have to hover your mouse over it. It should have something called Q&A. So if you have any questions, if I didn't hit on something that you want me to go deeper in, etc., just type in your question in Q&A and we can get those answered for you. So I'll give you just a minute here to get those in there. I do appreciate your attention this afternoon and so glad you could join us. Question is, anything for vaginal dryness? Absolutely. Here's where, fortunately, I've got a couple of different hats on. We do have some things over the counter that we can use, as well as we can also go into the compounding hat. So I'm pulling my pharmacy hat. So if you've got a practitioner you're working with, then we could do a compounded estradiol combination as either a cream or an estriol 2 milligram vaginal suppository works. Both of them work absolutely fantastic. And you may say, well, does the suppository work better or the cream? It's personal preference, right? Some women, oh, don't give me a cream. Others, no, I don't want to do a suppository. So it really depends what you want. I will tell you, if you're in a very hot climate and or you do a lot of traveling, then the cream is going to be a little bit easier to do that with. So great question, Jamie. Any other questions this afternoon? Give you just another minute or so. And again, it does take about a day or so for the recording to kind of finish up, and then generally the marketing crew kind of does an intro and outro to it. So hopefully in the next day or two, you should be receiving an email with a copy of the slides as well as a link to the recording. And we do have a new site up on that too for the Revelation YouTube channel, and kind of layering in all the different recordings that we've had for webinars. And question on, when labs? Well, depending where you are, ideally, I like to look at labs when you're 35. Okay, that's the first set of labs. Why, if we think back to that thing with quality of life and when it's starting to drop at 35. So it'd be great to look at labs when you're 35, provided you're not pregnant at the time. And still having a normal cycle. Ideally, if you are cycling, I like looking at the labs between days 18 to 21 of the cycle, where day 1 is the first day of bleeding. Now, ideally, we grab labs when you're feeling great, mid-30s, put them in a file. So then when you start having symptoms, then we can repeat the labs and compare. So then that really kind of serves as your personal baseline of where, hey, wow, I was feeling good. Everything was good here, of where we should kind of be targeting. Otherwise, if you're not having a cycle, not having a period, then just, man, anytime, just go get them drawn. Ideally earlier in the morning versus later in the day is going to give us the best levels there, most accurate. So typically we want to look at labs up front, and then I'll look at labs, again, kind of depending where you are. Generally, I'll do follow-up in 75 days, not looking at labs then, just really kind of basing it on progress and symptoms. So generally kind of from there, another 2 to 4 months down the road. So generally about 6 months. And then once we have you on therapy and have you fairly well balanced, feeling good, then, at least once a year, we look at labs, or unless there's big life changes. All right, folks. Well, I don't see any other questions in today. So with that, I'll certainly bid everybody farewell. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your attention. And certainly if we can help you, don't hesitate to reach out. And until next month, everybody have a wonderful day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.